Hello, everyone, and thanks for attending today's session, the virtual session for Cloud Slam, the new IT for the cloud revolution. My name is Keith Jan, and I'm going to be talking with you probably for the next 30 minutes or so, presenting some of this material, and then I'm going to try to leave as much time as possible for Q&A. Speaking of Q&A, as you probably know, all lines are muted, so there are no live questions voice to voice. The way QA is handled is through the box on the right-hand side of your screen. If you go to that box, if you have a question, select on the drop-down all panelists and ask your question there, and we'll have to answer them that way. You'll have to press send on your question. I'm honored to be here today talking to you about this. I'm with the Office of the CTO for HP Software. HP Software is a fairly big business unit within HP. Many of you are probably users or potentially competitors with HP Software. Prior to joining the Office of the CTO for software, I spent 20 years in IT, and in those 20 years, I held various different roles, working my way from development to system administration to infrastructure design, and ultimately becoming kind of the chief architect, chief strategist for our infrastructure team. And I had responsibility for all of the automation of all things IT, everything from the systems development lifecycle automation to the project automation to the back-end data center automation and help desk. And that gave me a lot of insight into how IT works and how the behaviors of IT manifest themselves in support of the business, and what IT should be doing and how it gets done, what it gets done. I've spent time in the financials, I've spent time in the technology, and I've spent time on the strategy. And once I moved out of IT and into the software business, I recognized that the software design was really based on an IT model, and that IT model had never really been stated clearly. So I spent a lot of time around service management and ITIL and how we design software around the processes of IT. And about 3 years ago, this cloud phenomena began to take shape, and it was interesting to me to see the way IT began to embrace and adopt cloud versus where I really felt like the cloud industry was headed. And I see a huge disconnect between the two. And so that's kind of what I'm going to cover with you today, and talk a little bit about how I believe that IT is going to be forced to change, and talk a little bit about what that looks like and how you get there from here. And so I think it's important to kind of set a baseline, and I think most of us on the call, understanding cloud, realize that we've entered a new place, a new era, an era where broadband connectivity and the commoditization of connectivity has driven us to a place where everything and everyone's connected. And we've got a much more tech-savvy workforce, a new generation of tech-savvy workers, as well as the older generation who, through consumerized cloud services, internet services, have become much more well-versed in technology and exploiting it for benefits. And they have a new set of expectations where they believe we can get immediate gratification and instant results by using technology. And in the enterprise, instead of the discussion around IT and business alignment, that's kind of taken a back seat to the fact that technology is being woven into the business fabric. The business, the business pulse is the technology, and that technology provides business people with the ability to do software. We're seeing new business models created, new ways of engaging customers, and new ways for suppliers and providers to collaborate. And all of this is happening on an anywhere, anytime, anyway basis. New devices provide new capabilities. And because of that, cloud is a forcing function for IT, and it's going to force of assets to the corporation, like assets being applications, information, infrastructure, to the CIO and his team becoming the builder and broker of services, IT services, or business services to the enterprise. And the CIO has to have the capability, the business model for IT has to have the capability for the function to build on-premise based services or in-sourced services, as well as the ability to consume external or off-premise services, and manage, while at the same time managing, securing those services, as well as the traditional legacy infrastructure and applications portfolio. And in addition to that, if that wasn't enough to do, there is going to be a need to transform some of these legacy infrastructure and applications to a new technology architecture. So these two slides really kind of set the stage for what we're going to drill into. There's a change. There's changes happening in the business and in the business technology, and those changes aren't necessarily. I'm not talking about changes in server fabrics or methods of storage. I'm actually talking about new business models, new experiences, new ways of engaging customers, and that's going to force an IT transformation, not at the technology level per se, but at the business model level. And so I'm going to explain what that looks like. But in order to get there, and really explain where the miracle is supposed to occur, and I'm supposed to be able to get it and do something with it and understand why it's necessary and fund it and get it driven through my organization. So we're going to talk a little bit about that. And in order to understand that, I think we have to take a step back in time and understand that cloud is not a new phenomenon. Cloud has been with us dating all the way back into the 90s, and we didn't call it necessarily cloud at the time. We looked at it through the lenses of Internet-enabled e-commerce and supply chain integration. The business models and new ways for businesses to engage customers. And the IT response was to take a new technology orientation and introduce new web-based application designs, three-tier architectures, new ways of outsourcing, and new service providers came onto the scene, the managed service providers, the application service providers, and the internet service providers. And the organization model that was in place, organization model, what I call AssetCentric. AssetCentric organization model is one where the CIO understands how things are supposed to work, and it's kind of locked in his head. But what you have to understand is that all of the organizations, all the functions are organized around their technology domains, right? So you've got what is these different IT tribes, right? So you've got the DBA tribe, the network tribe, the sysadmin tribe, the help desk tribe, the application development tribes, and they all have their own culture, rituals, tools, and language. And oh, by the way, these tribes don't like each other very much. And so when you think about how IT responds to a significant business change like internet e-commerce, it's really a group of tribes trying to stand up their technology solutions independently, and the way that they engage with their business is through a project-driven engagement model. So in other words, 80% of the time, if the project wants innovation, they meet with one of the tribes and they get a project request flowing through, and that's a long-running transaction. And 20% of the time, they get things handled via service requests or problem requests, right? And so in this Cloud One space, in this Internet e-commerce space, it was really a tribal organization model using a project lifecycle, and things took a long time to get done, right? And so everything was technology-driven. And so if you fast forward to today, that asset-centric organization model represents the lenses through which we're looking at the cloud disruption that's occurring in front of us. And so the fact is that when you look at cloud through asset-centric lenses, you'll see things like infrastructure, platform, and software as taking center stage and being the key drivers of this cloud disruption. And what ends up happening is that the goal for cloud, and this is what I think a lot of the industry is writing about today and talking about today and kind of organizing around, is the use of cloud technologies to deliver better, faster, cheaper IT, and to servicize these technologies to produce something called IT as a service. So that is why infrastructure as a service, software as a service, and platform as a service are taking center stage, and why the servicization of IT is driving kind of a shift right, if you will, on the organization model to what's being called service-centric. And service-centric, in the service-centric organization model, the goal is to really have an organization that can produce services to the business. And so things like, frameworks like ITIL are deemed to be very important in that model, or in that state, right? And so everything becomes the centers around the processes with which I provide or deliver these services to the business, and standing up the different functions like a service desk is ultra important in that context. But I want to very quickly go and look forward, and not too far forward. But the reality is that cloud is less about an IT technology, and it's more about the fact that there's going to be an explosion of business services that can be sourced instantaneously and produce immediate results, right? And these services will be context-aware, data-oriented. They can be multi-sourced from many different providers. And you'll see the emergence of new classes of service providers outside of the IT world and into the business world, or business service providers. And these services provide value directly to the business community, and they can be sourced with these business communities armed with an internet connection and a credit card can source them on their own. So why do they need IT intervention, right? And I would just argue that there is an answer for that, but having been on the other side, I understand that the way IT engages the business today, and because they engage through a project lifecycle, the business is always looking for ways around the IT function. And so we're kind of approaching a perfect storm where there's these pervasive business services that are good enough, ready to use, and a restless business community that has a credit card and an internet connection, and an IT organization that's stuck in an antique organization model and engagement model and unable to fulfill the needs of the business quickly enough. And that's going to cause a large amount of chaos on the horizon unless the IT organization is redesigned around a service broker model. And so I think, just to kind of very quickly sum up some of that the business is going to transform from stovepipe processes, complex monolithic applications, dedicated infrastructure, and point-to-point integrations. And by using cloud services, cloud business services, they'll be able to immediately get to these context-aware, ready-to-use services. They will have their own multi-sourced service ecosystem, And these services will give them the ability to solve new problems that were too complex or too expensive to solve before, and solve old problems in new ways, better, faster, cheaper. And so that's going to force an IT response that they have to shift from being responsible for provisioning and managing assets and using a plan, build, run kind of technology life cycle and a siloed tribal organization model that's project-driven and measured on cost, to becoming the service broker for the enterprise, the central service control point for the enterprise, which means a new life cycle, a source, integrate, manage of business services. And they need to be able to manage and govern a hybrid delivery model, which means you'll have a mix of Cloud One and prior, which is the traditional systems of record, to use a Jeffrey Moore term, as well as the new cloud business services, which kind of represent the systems of engagement portfolio. And they need to be organized around a service portfolio that's configurable and easy to source from. And what happens when you make this transition is that you shift away from being measured on cost to measured on value. And I know a lot of people talk about that, but I think it's very important to understand that cloud services, because the business is able to use them to solve new problems and solve old problems faster, that's something that they can attach an economic value to, versus technology like infrastructure as a service, which is so far removed from the business, where everything is measured on cost. If it's related to technology, then it's going to be measured on cost. If it's related to the business services and the business capabilities, it's going to be measured on value. So that's going to require a new organization model, right? So what I'd like to show you here is that kind of beyond all of the boxes and wires, what's this model really look like, and what are the mechanics supposed to look like? So I've worked with a group that's actually built a blueprint rendering of this new service broker IT hybrid delivery model. And what it's showing in the middle is the IT ecosystem of the enterprise. And what it's showing on the right-hand side are the sourcing providers, the external service providers that augment the capability of the IT organization. And what's important to note here is that there are the three basic layers: the infrastructure services, the platform services, and the application services of the IT organization. And then at the top layer are really the business services that the business units, which are in the backdrop here, engage with IT to consume and source and use to interact with their customers and suppliers. And so what I'm trying to show here is the fact that we are servicizing the IT organization and breaking down the silos and the tribes by organizing around a common thread, which is the service. And what ultimately happens is that in each service family, there's a portfolio of services that are consumed by either the other branches of the IT organization or by the business buyers themselves. And so very quickly, the I think key features here, and the first one and most important is that the entire organization revolves or is organized around the service portfolio. The service portfolio becomes the cornerstone of the IT organization in a service broker model. In an asset-centric model, the UCMDB has become the cornerstone. And the UCMDB is the cornerstone of an asset-centric model because it contains all of the assets, their current state, and their necessity for delivering what we believe to be the value to the business. But in reality, the UCMDB, while it's very important, is an operational cornerstone or a delivery cornerstone. And the service portfolio is actually the cornerstone where the business engages. It's what the business sees. It's what people value, right? It's what the IT organization delivers to the business that is valuable. And that is that is going to become the new cornerstone of the service broker IT organization. And that is the key to moving the deliverables from being measured on cost to being measured on value. I think another important thing to note is that because you're in a service-centric organization, you're going to be able to engage with the business differently. So instead of being 80% project-driven, you can become 80% service subscription-driven, right? And so being able to do demand-supply matching on services, while it's going to be new, is going to be much more effective than trying to do demand supply management on assets, right? So what we want to do is invert that metric from being 80-20 project to service request to 80% service request and 20% projects. And the service portfolio and the whole new service-centric model for IT enables that to happen. We also are going to require new tooling to manage and govern services, while at the same time having that end-to-end automation of the service lifecycle. And so at each point in each service family, there will be the automation required to manage the services through their lifecycle, while at the same time providing visibility and control to services operationally, to services that are either internally or externally sourced. We also, multi-supplier management is going to be huge. Today, I think in an asset-centric IT model, supplier management is difficult, but it's manageable. You're able to control. A CIO is able to oversee 80% of his supplier spend pretty effectively. As more and more of these business service providers pop up, the supplier portfolio is going to expand dramatically, very rapidly. So there's a new discipline and a new tooling and a new set of processes around multi-supplier management that are going to be imperative in the service broker model. And a new set of governance rules around service sourcing are going to be incredibly important. Today, governance is really around architecture, projects, and security. Tomorrow, governance shifts, not necessarily eliminating the needs for those, but also understanding what our service sourcing strategy is and how we govern that. In other words, how does the organization keep the business from creating what was called shadow IT, what will be called shadow sourcing? And the answer to that is by providing the service sourcing governance. And so, and then finally, I think it's important to note that for years, IT organizations have struggled with driving higher degrees of standardization. And the reason most have been unsuccessful is because they've taken an inside-out approach, which is from the technology out to the business, and it's excruciatingly difficult to get that funded. However, if you take a different approach and work from the service portfolio which the business values in towards IT, you'll find a higher degree of standardization is likely to occur as a pull-through, as a byproduct of standardizing around a set of services. And so instead of leading with infrastructure as a service or software as a service or platform as a service, those become the byproducts of standardizing around a set of business services that the business values, and those tools, those IT as a service or Cloud 2 technologies become the platforms on which those services are sourced. So there's an intersect between the services that the business values that are aligned with its business strategy and the technology standardization that occurs as a result of those services. And so I think that if you look at what's important to service broker governance and actuating this service broker model, there's really 5 key points. The first one, we've talked as a solution, as a system of engagement with the business is kind of my number one anchor point here. The number 2 is equipping the IT organization with end-to-end service visibility. for both internally sourced services and externally sourced services. Today, the ecosystem, the IT ecosystem, is built around the assumption that all services will be sourced internally, or at least flow directly through an IT pipeline. And so the tooling has visibility to that. As more and more services are sourced externally, that's going to require some new tooling to provide this end-to-end service visibility. And then 3, we need to look at the new IT financial management model and understand that, and this is more of a conversation with the CFO and controllership. The fact is that while today in an asset-centric, predominantly in-sourced IT organization, that the IT costs are fairly predictable and allocated based on some key metric, whether it's headcount or something. Tomorrow's world, where services are sourced for these different business processes, it's going to be very important to understand the variability in the IT finances and be able to route the charges back to the cost causer. And then 4th, the project portfolio management. That's something that is a discipline today in most mature IT organizations. That does not go away. You still need to be able to have a good handle on the spending around projects. And then finally, the multi-supplier management, which we talked about a moment ago. These, I just call these out to let you know how I look at, when you ask, okay, what's important? What are kind of the anchor points? These are kind of the 5 foundational anchor points of the IT business model, the service broker business model, that help you maintain control as more and more business services are available through cloud sources. So the question becomes then, okay, how do I get there from here? And this requires some level of transformation. Transformation exercises are heavy lifting, they're hard, they're expensive, and I don't have the budget for it, and I've already got more than I can do. So I think that, and I'm kind of trying to get through this real quick so we can get to questions, so I'm kind of entering the home stretch. The first key is to understand that the business priorities and strategy and align those with the IT service portfolio. The fact is today that there's kind of a drive-through window mentality and relationship between the business and IT. That the business establishes what it wants to do, and it turns around and gives orders to an IT organization for what it needs, and there's this order taker mentality. In the service broker model, there's got to be more synchronization between the business strategy and the service portfolio. And so what I would recommend, and what I recommend to a lot of customers I talk to, is that identify a few services, 2 or 3, and begin the transformation around those services. And that's not unlike what was done in the Cloud One days. In the Cloud One days, in the Internet e-commerce space, the most IT organizations segregated a group of people to go stand up the e-commerce environment and to deal with a new set of service providers and a new application architecture. And they did that with the business, in collaboration with the business, around a common goal, and they executed effectively to stand up the new business models, the new supplier management behaviors, the new application models and integration requirements. Unfortunately, once that matured, they were all shoehorned back into the asset-centric organization, right? Today, what we've got to learn from that history, and we've got to identify a few services and collaborate with the business to transform the IT model as well as potentially business models around this new way of leveraging technology. And then what you want to do is then iterate back through and select a few more services and transform around those. And what you see happening is the alignment of the IT organization around an emerging service portfolio. So instead of pushing from an IT organization out to the business, what I'm suggesting is that you work from the business end, change the engagement model, change the tooling, change the, build a service portfolio, build a new governance model, and let the IT technologies pull through on top of that. So in other words, if you need an infrastructure utility, it will be directly related to a set of business services that you're building. And if you want to call that private cloud, that's wonderful. But the reality is today, in the asset-centric culture of IT, in what is Cloud 2, we're taking I'm going to build a private cloud, which is a technology architecture, and then I'm going to go in search of a problem. And that's just fundamentally, an evolution of the internet e-commerce, that's an evolution or transition from Cloud 1 to Cloud 2, when in reality we're missing the opportunity to capitalize on the shift in the business and letting the technology be funded by these business changes. And so just as a shameless advertisement, at HP, we understand this transformation, and we have a set of services that I won't read to you here, a set of capabilities that we can deliver to you. So in summary, I think that it's important to note that the fact is that cloud is evolving over a maturity continuum, and this maturity continuum is being driven by an IT organization that's looking at it through asset-centric lenses. So that's why we're hearing things like private cloud and public cloud, and what's really being meant by that are really a set of IT services, infrastructure as a service, platform as a service, software as a service. And that's just fundamentally, so those things are important. I don't want to discount those. But what's important to note is that that's not what the business wants. The business doesn't want software as a service, platform as a service, infrastructure as a service. The business wants instant results, immediate gratification. They want the ability to solve new problems. They want the ability to solve old problems better, faster, cheaper. They want a new engagement model. They have a new set of expectations about how to engage technology and how to exploit it for real business value. And as long as IT gets stuck in what I call Cloud 2, looking at cloud through technology lenses, we're going to have a gap between what the business needs and what IT is able to deliver. And that gap is going to help us run the risk of IT ultimately becoming marginalized by the business sourcing its own services and disintermediating its processes, much like it did back in the birth of the PC days when it brought desktops into the workplace and started running business on spreadsheets. This is that same kind of phenomenon, but it's on steroids, because you've got a much more tech-savvy business community, one that's experienced, and an IT organization that continues to look at producing business results from the technology out will ultimately run the risk of becoming a marginalized function, and the CIO moves into a CMO role or a chief maintenance officer role, where the business is sourcing its own innovation and services and throwing it over the fence to the IT organization. And so what's important is that IT moves to a hybrid delivery service broker model, and HP has a significant amount of solutions that enable them to do just that. And so with that, I think I want you to understand that for many, cloud is an IT event. And I think a lot of discussions around cloud center around the technologies and around, here are in trouble. The reality is that cloud's a business disruption with IT implications. And IT's got to transform to this hybrid model. And HP's the only company on the planet that can help you get there with a complete portfolio. And I'm going to stop and take questions. I've got a couple that have popped up here. I am going to go back a couple of slides to have a slide that I can talk from on the screen here. Let me go here, I believe. So, question 1. You seem to be saying that services is the cloud. However, you can have services you can't have services without a cloud. Okay, so I think it's important to note that in a cloud 2, from a cloud 2 perspective, if you look at cloud through IT-centric or asset-centric lenses or an IT service-centric lens, the cloud will be a place. It'll be a destination. You'll use the term called the cloud. And the cloud is some sort of technology landing spot. And while I think that technology architectures that are utilitized, consumerized, easy to engage, and create a new set of experiences, those are important. What's more important is to understand that the real cloud, the cloud services are really cloud business services. It's just like in the consumer space today. Facebook, Google's, YouTube's, all of the things that have exploded onto the scene are a layer of abstraction away from the technology. These are services that have value attached to them, and they're becoming more and more pervasive, and they're easy to engage, and that's the experience that's been created in the consumer space that's moving into the enterprise, and that's the experience that an IT organization has to create. And as long as we think of cloud as these 3 categories, the fact is that the organization will get stuck, and it won't be delivering to its business constituents on the level that they want it. So the question confused me a little bit. So if you want to clarify, that'd be great. There's another question, and I know Tim has asked this a couple times, so I want to get to the era of cloud computing began with AWS EC2 in 2006. Where has HP been for the past 5 years? So Amazon created a cloud infrastructure, what they called a cloud infrastructure, that with Amazon and S3 and EC2. And I think what our perspective is that is essentially the next generation of an MSP model, which is this cloud 2. So infrastructure as a service is a natural evolution of being a managed service provider, and that was a space that we took a long look at to see, okay, is this the space we want to play in? And so it did take us some time. We were on a trajectory to get to that place to see if it was, and we looked at that to see if it was going to be a successful business model. And once we decided that it was a successful business model, we decided that we wanted to lead in that space. And so we have announced those services. We will be delivering those competitive services. I have another question. What's your take on the current maturity level of enterprises, both business and IT, in the new era of cloud? I think that so it's all over the map right now, and that's why I believe that Cloud 3 is an emerging space and not necessarily directly upon us. We have a window of opportunity to get in front of it from a business perspective. But what we're seeing is a new workforce entering the enterprise with all their new devices, all their new expectations and new experiences, and on how they engage technology. And when they want to drive business innovation, they call up their IT tribe, and the IT tribe comes at them with a project-led engagement model that's going to be 12 to 18 months before it delivers the value. And as this new generation becomes the next generation leaders, they're not going to accept that, and they're going to go source their own services. So this behavior, this consumer class behavior, as it crosses over into the enterprise, is going to create even greater tensions between the IT organization and the business community. And so we have a window of opportunity to get in front of that right now. From an IT perspective, I would say 90% of the customers I talk to are transitioning between Cloud 1 and Cloud 2, being led by an asset-centric organization model, trying to overlay ITIL processes and become more service-centric, but not even thinking about how to become this service broker because they see the destination. They see cloud as a place. They see cloud as being an EC2-like destination. And that's that's the problem. So IT organizations continue to look at cloud as being an enabler for better, faster, cheaper IT capabilities. So becoming an MSP or an ASP is goal. And in reality, that's not what it's about. Those things are foundation technology architectures that I think the IT organization needs to stand up. But standing them up in and of themselves is additive. It doesn't make things go away, and that's how IT budgets spiral out of control on the maintenance line. And instead, if you acknowledge the fact that there's these new business models, these new set of business innovations and capabilities that we need to go attack, and you use cloud and you view cloud as these pervasive business or the cloud business services, and you stand up these business services using these utilitized technology architectures, then it begins to make more sense. Then you can control it. You mentioned ITIL processes. How relevant is ITIL in Cloud 3 era? I think ITIL is a backdrop, and ITIL is an enabler for a Cloud 3 service broker model. But without a business model, without an understanding and getting it out of the CIO's head and onto a blueprint rendering and defining those governance structures and the financial model that's associated with it, with the absence of a business model, the processes don't make any sense. And I know there's a religious argument around whether ITIL is process or framework or what have you. I would just say that the position I take is that ITIL is a good discipline, is a good set of best practices. It's good discipline, but that discipline, when it's overlaid, when it's implemented in a tribal model, essentially is implemented as many times as there are tribes, right? So you're driving service centricity into each tribe, but you're not breaking down the tribal behavior. In a business model, in a real business model that's created and it's organized around a service family or a set of deliverables that the business values, that discipline and that process framing makes more sense. So I would say that if the IT organization just looks at Cloud 3 through the lenses of ITIL, they'll fall short. There was another question from Sanjay up above. The services could be cloud or non-cloud based, so disconnected with the basic idea of cloud. So I want to be very clear that if you look at this Cloud 1, 2, 3 very simplistic continuum here, the IT organization has to continue to sustain it all. So if you, instead of calling it Cloud 1, 2, 3, you call it traditional or traditional or legacy as the first point, today's world as a second, and this new cloud service world as a third, the IT organization of the future has got to be able to manage all of those, because the reality is that for the foreseeable future, there's going to be a hybrid model, a mix of cloud-sourced services, or cloud-sourced business services, internally sourced applications, externally sourced applications, and the traditional classic systems of record that have been around forever. And so the IT organization has to be able to manage that hybrid environment. Okay. Does anybody have any other questions? I think that I want to be sure, Sanjay, that I answered your questions. If you're still on, love to get some clarification if you have them. So is HP building cloud data centers like Microsoft and Google? So the reality is we already have a lot of data centers through our outsourcing business, through our IT function, and through our labs. We have a lot of data centers, and so there is no announcement on specific cloud data centers that I'm able to share with you today. But I would say that what we're doing is architecting what we believe to be the best cloud utility offerings, and we will be implementing those in existing centers where it makes sense. And through the normal course of business, if it makes sense to stand up new data centers specifically targeted for these types of utilities, then I believe we'll do that. But I'm not, there's nothing being announced here today, and nothing that's been announced in the marketplace. So I mean, the goal and the most effective business plan is to use the capacity that we already have more effectively and more wisely before we go make such a significant investment in something that we, quite frankly, already own. Oh, this is a good question. So what happened to HP's cloud-in-a-box shipping container pod? I'm glad you raised it. We still absolutely are committed to those pods. In fact, I'm meeting with the guy that runs that business tomorrow. For those of you that don't know, HP has a solution that is quite exciting one, I believe. You picture a shipping container filled with racks of blades and of compute and storage and power, and what you have is a real powerful data center in a box that is much more agile and effective to either augment existing capacity or to drop into places where building a freestanding data center doesn't make sense, or to places where you need this temporary kind of power, or maybe even want to use it for DR capabilities. But it is an extremely powerful solution that we call pods, and these pods can be stacked and racked. It is absolutely a forward-looking breakthrough in how compute and storage and networking capabilities are delivered to the businesses, to IT functions around the world. So that's still there. We're continuing to mature that. If for those of you that haven't seen it, I'd recommend you go to hp.com and look at it online. Will this presentation be available for replay? That's my understanding, and I don't have. I'll have to ask the track facilitator here to respond to that. Check my instructions real quick. So the answer to that is 2 to 3 weeks after the conference, there will be a URL for broader access. Any other questions? We've still got about 44 people. Oh, here's Tim again. Will HP support any of the emerging cloud architectures such as those being developed and are offered by Eucalyptus Nebula, OpenStack, OpenNebula, or Novell Cloud Manager? And the answer to that is yes. The detailed answer around which ones, when, and how, I don't know. There's a group of folks within that we call in the Cloud Services Business Unit, and you can reach out to any of those folks through your local HP contact, or contact me and I can route you. but those folks have a good plan and a lot of details around this stuff. We have about 9 minutes left. I'm wondering if there are any other questions from out there from somebody that hasn't asked one yet, or where does HP OpenView fit with cloud? That's a great question. I think that for those of you that don't know, the legacy name for our management ecosystem was OpenView. It changed to Business Technology Optimization, BTO software, and through a bunch of acquisitions. So we've got the answer is multidimensional. First, I think traditionally the traditional what you would know as systems management, network management, FCAPS, fault, capacity, asset problem. All of that portfolio continues to live, and it's being refactored to provide visibility not only to internally sourced capabilities and services, but also to provide visibility to externally sourced services and capabilities. So operationally, you'll see enhancements already existing and those on the horizon that extend the visibility to the IT ecosystem that extends beyond on-premise data centers. So that's one dimension. The other dimension is the creation of new services, the creation of new applications, and the acknowledgement that development process, the QA and testing processes, may occur within the internal data centers, or it may occur at an Amazon or an HP or someplace external to your data center. And so we've extended the application development capabilities, and we've continued to expand and extend the application development, testing, and release capabilities to acknowledge the fact that development can occur anywhere. And so, for example, we announced, I think last year, the ability to manage testing, application testing in Amazon. So we've already got that capability built into the kit today. The acknowledgement that you'll need to be able to release applications from test to production, and production may be at an external provider. Our tools understand and will be expanded to deliver that capability. And then thirdly, the business dimension. I think you'll see us invest more and more in this new engagement model between IT and the business, this less of a project-biased engagement to a service-biased or service-led engagement. So you'll see new experience portals from an experience portal from HP, and the ability to engage business users with a set of services, a service portfolio, a service catalog. So there's the engagement point. Then there's the financial management. So we've got financial management capabilities. We've had market-leading project management, project portfolio capabilities for years. So all of these things. So from a business management and governance perspective, you'll see us continue to invest there. From an IT operations, what you would classically think an IT operations and delivery, we've continued and will continue to invest there, and the applications and the emerging DevOps space, you'll continue to see us invest there as well. So I believe that we've acknowledged that the IT model, the IT business model, is going to shift. It's going to be forced to shift, and our solution software is aimed at supporting that new business model. We've got 4 minutes, and I'm certainly willing to entertain any additional questions. These have been really good so far, really good questions, and I'm happy to entertain any others. Okay, well, I guess I'll give you 3 minutes back since there doesn't seem to be any other questions. I do appreciate your attendance. I hope you found some nugget that you could take away from this. It's a different way of looking at cloud. It's looking at cloud from more of an IT organization and business engagement perspective than looking at cloud as an IT destination or an IT utility. And you know, I hope that you understand that there's a need for the IT organization moving forward, and for those organizations that don't understand that they've got to shift their thinking and shift their positioning with the business. I think it's going to be a very chaotic time and a very reactionary time. But for those organizations that want to get in front of it, we at HP would be happy to entertain conversations and engage with you to lead you through that transformation. So again, thank you for your time. Thank you for your questions. And if I can help you at all, please feel free to reach out to me directly. And with that, I'll end the call. Thank you very much.